What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades, and today we've got a hell of a blade here. Let's see if we can get this whole thing in the frame of the video. What we've got here is a Columbia River knife and tool, CRKT Williams designed HZ6. This is a James Williams design, one of many that Sensei Williams, Mr. Williams, has designed for Columbia River knife and tool. They are typically Asian inspired. I would call this, I don't know what the term is for this style of blade in a Japanese styling. I'm sure it's a beautiful couple of words, whatever it is. And it means something like falling cherry blossoms on spring winds, or something like that. You know, I'm sure it's beautiful, whatever this blade style is. But this is typical of Mr. Williams' design style. And like I say, he's got more than a few folders and fixed blades that he has done for Columbia River knife and tool. If you like this design, this Asian inspired design, then take a look at those different models. Let's see the HZ6. Let's talk about the price on this thing, and we want to know that up front because I'm going to point out some shortcomings on this knife and some things that I really like about it, and one thing that I absolutely cannot stand. It is one of the most terrible of its respect that I have ever seen with a knife. And we're going to get into price here. You know, I looked across the market because I've had this knife in hand for months here on the tabletop for review. I'm working my way through a backlog. This thing has been here for months. I don't even remember where I bought it from. But right now, I checked right now, and they're averaging between $106 and $125. The best deal that I found right now was at knifeworks.com. That was the $106. You will have to decide for yourself whether it is worth that to you. So this is a pretty doggone big knife. Let's get this thing out of here, and let's bring out this pretty doggone big box with a piece of blue tape stuck to it. And one end of this box has got what we're looking for. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm having to fit all of this under my camera, so if we got some awkward angles here, I'm sorry. You can see this is a product of Taiwan. This is the 2927, the Williams fixed blade. It's the HZ6. Inside of that box, you will find a small CRKT pamphlet with warranty information, and you will find the sheath and the sheath clip and hardware. So let's bring this back out, knock out the specs on this thing. And the HZ6, the 6 in that signifies a blade length which is not 6 inches. This should actually be named the HZ 6.5 because it is a 6.5 inch blade. That's about 16.5 centimeters. Your blade width is just over 1 inch. That's about 26.5 millimeters. Blade stock thickness is 210 thousandths of an inch or 5.4 millimeters. She's chunky, guys, for those of you that like the chunky girls. Handle length, 4 3/4 inches or 12 centimeters. That is a pretty compact handle length for a 6.5 inch blade knife. I think you can see that. The handle width at the ends of the handle where it flares out is about 1 1/4 inches, or about 32 millimeters. Thickness on the handle, 585 thousandths of an inch or 14.8 millimeters. Your overall length, about 11 1/4 inches or 28.5 centimeters. Behind the edge thickness, this is not a slicer. It is 30 thousandths behind the edge, and that is 0.77 millimeters. Your weight, 8.36 ounces. Without the sheath. With the sheath, it is 10.93 ounces. And then for grams, that is 237 grams, 310 grams respective. It's a big knife, and it's heavy blade stock, and you get that in the weight. And the big old thick slabs of G10 on the handle, they probably add a little bit of weight as well. So let's talk about materials. In your blade steel, we are looking at SK5. SK5 is a Japanese steel. It is a medium-high carbon, water-quenching carbon steel. It is not stainless at all. You may, just looking at the content of the alloying, you may want to compare it to 1080 carbon steel because their carbon level is about the same, around that 0.8, 0.9% carbon. The chromium on this is very low. It's 0.3. It is nowhere near stainless. It will rust. They do have a coating on it, but you will want to watch the edge, the exposed edge on this, and any laser engravings. They are always a spot where rust will start. So SK5, what can we expect out of this carbon steel? It's a pretty decent, balanced, sort of low-cost carbon steel out of Japan. You're looking at a decent edge retention, decent toughness, abysmal corrosion resistance. It is reputed to be a very good balance of wear resistance or edge retention and toughness or impact resistance. Actually, the toughness is rated as fairly high for the high carbon content and the high hardenability of this steel. The manufacturer says that you can harden this steel water quenching up to 65 Rockwell. I doubt very seriously if Columbia River is doing that. I would say it is probably hardened in the 59-ish range, I would say. And you know what? At that range, if it is in that range, the 59-ish range, it should be pretty tough at that point. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get into the review. So SK5 in your blade steel, you do have big, thick slabs of G10 for your handle. It's a very simple. The G10 has a coarse surface texture. It is machined in sort of a faux Japanese wrap type pattern, and it does have some very deeply troughed coarse jimping around the perimeter. If you've got sensitive Nancy boy hands, you will not like this grip on this. I absolutely love this grip, but I will say this. If you are using this knife without gloves, you will want to be careful. You could, it feels like this. I have not done this. I'm not telling you it will do it. I'm pretty sure though. If you are using this in a stabby motion, which is what this knife blade is designed for, stabby, and you hit a hard object and your hand is resting on this G10, it is very crisply done on the edges. It's very crisply done. These are huge jimps, guys. I mean, look at this. You know, I have large size hands, my hand volume with stubby medium length fingers. Look at how big those jimp troughs are against my large size hand. That's pretty big, guys. I would just about think that if you were using this very aggressively in a stabbing motion and you contacted something hard, you might be able to tear the skin on your hand because this grip is so aggressive. Mr. Williams, typically, he does a lot of training with military and law enforcement teams. These teams, regardless of who they are, they typically on mission or in training, they are wearing gloves. I would say this grip might be designed around that sort of use in a gloved hand. I absolutely love it. I love the way it looks. I love the way it feels. I love the aggression on it. But this is not a knife that I'm going to take out and use. It is a strictly martial use knife, and it's not a slicer. It is just really stabby and aggressive for martial use. So you may want to be aware of that. But you got G10 here. It's well machined. It's well fitted, everything like that. The big torque screws that are on this handle are T15. So we're not looking at any little bitty T6 screws holding that handle on. And you've got some nice thick stock thickness, almost 1/4 of an inch. It's a heavy duty knife, guys. No doubt about that. And then SK5 carbon steel. It should be really tough and usable within its limitations. So there's our materials. Fit and finish. At $100 to $125, I think we're okay on fit and finish. I can't really point out anything on this knife that is flawed at all. But I will say this. This knife came with such an aggressive needle sharp tip. When I got this knife in, I looked at it and I checked the tip, and it was incredibly needle sharp. It was beyond ridiculous, even for this type of blade. So this thing's been sitting here on the table in the Kydex sheath that it comes in. When I pulled this knife back out of the sheath, this knife has never been used in any way, guys. It has never cut anything except paper. It has never stabbed anything at all. When I pulled this out of the sheath, the tip was chipped on it. The tip, the absolute tip, that super extreme needle tip was broken off. This knife has never, ever been used. There has never been anything put against that tip except for putting this in and out of the Kydex sheath. I think that the tip was done so thinly that when they sharpened it, there's such little metal on the tip, it may have overheated the tip, and there was a crack in that tip, and it worked that tip off with me taking it in and out of the sheath. Now, not a huge deal. I mean, you do not want to see anything like that, and that really doesn't say anything good about toughness, does it? But it's understandable because I cannot stress enough how needle sharp that tip was. It was beyond anything that you would need. I mean, it was really, really fine and thin at the tip. So I have touched off on this just a little bit just to work the chip out. If I get it just right in the light, you may be able to see some reflection along the edge at the tip, meaning that I have not gone back and resharpened and apexed the edge out there at the tip, say the last 1/16 of an inch there. I did take it back to a tip. You know, it wasn't an extremely big chip at the end of it. You can see right here, it is still incredibly stabby, pokey, instantly catching, guys. And it's not even been resharpened out there on the tip. I just barely worked the chip out of it, and then the rest will come out when it's resharpened. Even now, it's a very usable for stabby type of stuff. But I did want to say something about that within the fit and finish aspect of this review. Now, the coating is decent. It is a textured coating. It feels like a cheap coating, and this is a Columbia River knife, so it probably is. If you don't like the coating, it would probably be rather easy to strip off with a chemical stripper. Let's take a look at our markings here. Columbia River on the front. And then we've got Williams design, and then the model number there. There is no steel designator, as far as I know, on this knife. So there you go. Fit and finish on the handle. Let's take a look at this. Like I say, the handle slabs themselves, the G10, is very well done, as good as anything that I've seen from Columbia River. Very crisp. I love these handle scales. I cannot stress that enough. The fit to the tang of the blade is pretty decent. There is a nail catch going both ways on this. Yeah, and it's, well, you know what? It may be a little boxed, purposefully boxed, where they've brought the handle scales in from the edge just to give it an exposed ridge line on this handle around the perimeter. I am thinking that's probably what it is, because that nail catch is very even all the way around. It actually looks like it has been purposefully done that way. And you know what? For that, let's not even call it a nail catch. That's an actual purposeful design aspect, and it's very even around the edge. If you cannot get some paracord through there, I don't know what to tell you, because you can fit a ballpoint pen through there. So you better get that damn paracord through there if you want to put a lanyard on this big hunking piece of steel right here. I got to get way back away from the camera now. So there you go, fit and finish wise. You know, you got plenty of texturing on this handle. We've already gone into how aggressive it is. Please keep that in mind. I am not saying that as a negative. I really appreciate the amount of texture and grip on this handle, and I think with a pair of gloves on, it would even be better than what I feel right now, just a bare skin. All right. I want to talk about the utilitarian use of this knife and the ergonomic comfort of the handle design. The blade obviously is very purpose driven. At 30 thousandths behind the edge, this is in no way a slicer. It's on the sort of rough side of being a cutter, actually. But this blade, it would still work in a slashing movement. You're coming around here, you're rotating, you're driving that blade around, rotating right here in your grip. You've got your thumb forward, you're rotating that around as you slash, and you're rolling all of this continuous belly across your target area with this. I mean, that is a devastating, look at that, guys. Look at that. That is devastating. A huge amount of cutting area here. At least 6 inches of cutting edge. Even though it's 30 thousandths behind the edge, you are going to open up a big wound channel in a slashing movement. And in a stabby movement, I mean, that's 6.5 inches of blade. That's enough to stab through parts of the body and see the blade sticking out the other side. I mean, that's a decent amount of blade right there, guys. 6.5 inches. And it is very, very sharp. You know, it came utterly, ridiculously pointy sharp from the factory. It is it's a scary blade in a real knifer's hand. Somebody that is trained, say Mr. Williams, or somebody he has trained in the military or law enforcement, or another martial use expert out there. It would be a devastating weapon with a great amount of reach. Nobody in an actual martial use is going to argue that reach does not matter over, say, something like a standard folding knife. The reach is double the blade length on your standard folding knife. So there's no arguing with being able to reach out there and touch somebody with the cutting end of this instrument here. Thick behind the edge, guys. It's not going to be much of a paper slicer. I can tell you that right now. The quality of the edge is actually, it's decent. It catches. Yeah, it'll shave off of my fingernail there. You know, it's not razor sharp or anything. It's what I like to call Columbia River sharp, which is not razor sharp. I used to be such a huge fan of Columbia River, but honestly, even on their higher end products, they're just not competitive on the market as far as their fit and finish goes. And you see little small things in this, like that, that tip breaking off and it's never been used. I mean, that's not a joke, guys. I haven't dropped this thing. It's been sitting here on the review table with zero use. Zero use. It's just been taken in and out of the sheath 20 or 30 times to show it to people to get their feedback on it. Yeah. Utilitarian use and comfort on the grip. Again, you take the coarseness, the texture, this giant trough, Grand Canyon jimping right here. Take that out of the equation, thinking that it's that way on purpose. It's a wide open handle design, and it is extremely comfortable. It is basically a coffin handle style handle to me. That's what it reminds me of. Even though it's narrow in the center, it flares at the ends. It's a very wide open, very straight, very usable, reversible grip. It's not bad at all. The grip is absolutely, it's spot on. It is spot on. The overall design of the knife is spot on. There's just some small things that I don't really like about it. On the knife itself, that tip breaking is about the only thing that I would change. I would probably change this grind angle on the primary grind to try to get that behind the edge thickness down at least a few thousandths from 30 thousandths, guys. That's pretty thick behind the edge. I'd like to see it down at least 25 thousandths, 22 thousandths, at least. I mean, I'm not really hoping for 20 thousandths on this narrow of a blade, this narrow of a grind with that much stock thickness. You're just not going to get super thin behind the edge, but I believe it could be a little thinner. Now, we're going to talk about the one thing that I absolutely hate about this knife, and that's the sheath. Let's take a look at the knife one more time, because it really is an attractive knife. It is just big and badass, and everybody that looks at it is like, oh my God, it's like a little sword. Everybody loves it. Just makes everybody smile. But when you show them the sheath, they all cringe. They're like, oh my God, put the clothes back on that ugly ass person. This is hands down the ugliest sheath I have ever seen in my life. The design is horrendous. It is giving me eye aids right now even looking at this sheath. I cannot believe that they even brought this to market. Columbia River, do they have a drinking problem? Were they high? I mean, you could get high and you'd be like, look at that. Let's put it out that way. That is so ugly. And the worst thing is the fit is terrible. It's terrible. Let's take a look at this. We're going to slide this knife in here, and I want you to look at this, and I want you to tell me exactly where the retention is on this knife. You can see right here. You see how this is fit? It's a little bit thinner, narrower throated going over the grip here. That's the only retention. Okay, it just slides in. There is no, I mean, it sounded like it clicked, but there's absolutely nothing clicking there. Just the friction right here against the thickness of the handle. That is the only retention. The only retention, and this thing has 1/4 of an inch of play this way. It's got a 1/16 inch of a play across the width or the thickness of it here. It is rattly. I mean, if you get lost in the woods, okay, You get lost in the woods and there's a search party out there for you, you could take this off of your belt, hold it up in the air, and jiggle it. And somebody is going to stop right where they are in the search party, and they're going to be like, wait, everybody shut up. Is that a Columbia River knife jiggling around in a badly fit sheath? That's what it sounds like to me. That's the lost person right there. This sheath is horrendous. It is horrendous. It has got a one-sided clip on it that is actually a decent clip design. It's spring steel. It's very stiff. It has a retention catch point here. It's going to stay on your belt. Unfortunately, if you put it on your belt, you've got a clip on one side of this sheath. This is going to leave this sheath to be caught on anything and levered away. I wish instead of a taco type sheath, fold over, they would have just done a straight two-piece sheath with the slotting and eyelets down both edges, and then you could have done a tack lock, you could have done dual loops, you could have done any molly locks or anything like that. But the thing is with this sheath, you can do nothing with it right now that is not just one-sided. On top of that, really, are you going to strap this on to your body? Tell me. Now, I'm not a fashionista, okay? I'm not a princess, but I'll be damned if I'm going out in public with this ugly-ass sheath on my body. This is a sheath. You put the knife in the sheath. You pretend like you don't even have it. You put it down in your pack where nobody can see it. That way, when you got to get in a ninja fight later, if you have a chance to get in your pack and take this ninja fighting knife out, nobody's going to see the sheath. You don't want to be in a ninja fight and everybody start laughing at you, because that's what this is. That's what this is. This is the desperate guy that took the really, really, really ugly girl to the dance because, you know, even the decently attractive women wouldn't have anything to do with him. That's this guy right here. Ugly, 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 loose fit, basically zero, other than just a little bit of friction. There's no locking point. This sheath should have been formed down, molded around this first set of jimping. That should be where that sheath is locking in. And it is not. You can see I don't know if I get that right there. You see the barest attempt to do that. That's not shit. That is not, there is no retention off of that at all. It is literally just the friction as you push up onto the scale on the flat. It's terrible fit. It is a absolutely shit-ass, horrible sheath. Ugly. An ugly, shit-ass, horrible sheath. So, do you want to buy this knife for $106 to $125, knowing the limitations? It's not going to be a slicer. It's not going to be a utility blade where you go out and you do hard work with it. This is a dedicated Marshall use knife, period. Okay? I love the knife. I love the design of the knife. I love James Williams' design language. I love these Asian-inspired designs. But this is not a super good realization of that, other than as a pointy, stabby, pokey, piercy sort of knife. Even though, like I say, you come rotating around in a slashing movement, you are going to shear soft tissue, even though that edge is 30 thousandths behind the edge, because it's sharp, guys. I mean, it's sharp enough. Let's see if we got some paper here. We'll tear off the notes that I've got here. Well, shit, fire. We'll tear off the notes here, see if we can cut some of this paper. Okay. It's guys, it's I mean, it's obvious it's sharp and it's cutting, but it's not shearing anything very well. So I'm going to say it's going to be limited in use. It's going to be limited in comfort for you guys that have more sensitive skin, sensitive hands. And the sheath sucks. I'm not even bringing the sheath back out. I'm not doing that to you guys. I know every one of you feel like you've been... I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I should never have brought that sheath out, but it's part of the review. You've got to see it. Thankfully, there are aftermarket sheath companies that can do a sheath for this knife, but they're going to cost $30, $40, $60. Do you want to add $30, $40, $60 to the cost of this knife already? You're already up. If you do an aftermarket Kydex sheath, you're going to have at least $150 to $170 into this knife. I wouldn't do that myself. I'll keep it in the original ugly ass sheath. I'm going to keep it in my collection because I love the design. Don't get me wrong, I love this design. It won't be a go-to for any type of use for me, but it is a super solid, beautiful design from James Williams. Typical Columbia River quality, meaning the knife, pretty decent, sheath, piece of crap, and ugly to boot. So, there you go, the Columbia River knife and tools, James Williams designed HZ6, the 6 standing for the 6.5 inch blade, so it should be HZ 6.5. There you go. Take it as you will and make your own decisions on this one. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch one of my videos. God bless all of you, and I will talk to you again.